Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. We have an active week of weather and an active storm track for the first time in about, I don't know, 2 months. It's been a while. We've been in a drought. We're finally going to get storm systems, and each one, because of the time of year, has the potential for a little bit of wintry mischief, especially in the mountains if it is. So let's start with today. Today is Monday, December 1st, the beginning of December here. You could see our storm system developing out west. This is what's going to be heading our way. That's the storm system. Now, the key part for us, we also have high pressure building over New England that is providing northeast winds. This is the good old fashioned wedge or cold air damming you hear us talk about. This sets the stage for these miserable cold rains and potentially sometimes some ice in a wintry mix. So let's get right to the forecast for this thing pushing east, and we'll talk about one of three systems that could impact us over the next week or so. All right, so here's the short range future cast, kind of shows you the setup here. I put the isobars on here, which are these blue lines, which you'll see on the map. And what you're looking at here is the northeast wind. This is the wedge of cold air. Anytime you see the isobars angled like this east of the mountains, that's a sign we've got high pressure over New England, the eastern Great Lakes, which is providing the cold air at the surface. The problem is that's shallow cold air typically. There's warmer air aloft, and you're probably saying, well, where's the warmer air coming from? Well, this low pressure system, it's a pretty strong low pressure system down here, and this is going to bring the potential for some warmer air above our heads, 6,000 feet coming in from the southeast or southwest, excuse me, overriding that cool air at the surface. So what happens is as temperatures cool off at the surface, sometimes you get some icing. Now, you can get icing to continue or become a big ice storm if the supply of cold air continues, because a little bit of science here. The one thing about freezing rain, it's a self-limiting process. And what do I mean by that? Well, this goes back to science class, latent heat, okay? So think about when you boil water on the stove, right? You have to add heat to the water to get it boil. Now, when you freeze water, you do the opposite, right? To cool it down, you have to remove heat from the water. So when you freeze water, you remove heat from the liquid, and it's got to go somewhere. In the atmosphere, when you freeze rain, the heat that escapes from the raindrop to make it a piece of ice has to go somewhere. It goes into the air and warms it up. So unless you have a constant supply to reinforce that cold air, eventually that latent heat release will warm up the atmosphere enough to get it above freezing where the freezing rain stops. So in this case, the warm air advection, we call it, is so strong that eventually it overcomes that process, and we don't have an anchoring high over the northeast, which stops the latent heat from warming the atmosphere up. So it limits itself. So you see the ice. I'll show you where it is. It's those typical spots. And if you live in the mountains, you know these areas. Man, Pinola, uh, Jonas Ridge area, up to Newland, Blowing Rock area, up towards Fleetwood. These are the areas, eastern facing slopes, the opposite of the northwest flow snow. Icing events are usually on the eastern facing slopes. And so you see that ice there early tomorrow morning. Again, 4 or 5 in the morning. This is all rain for everybody else, by the way. Eventually, it changes to rain for everybody, and that's some pretty heavy rain. So I'll loop this out into the afternoon. It starts to dry out as drier air filters in, and we should be completely dry by the evening. So it's really your Tuesday morning commute that gets absolutely clobbered with heavy rain for everybody and ice in the mountains. So in particular, the area that I'm watching, so we're really focused on those eastern facing slopes. So here's what I'm talking about. We'll kind of zoom in on it real quickly here and show you the area of icing. So you see there, eastern facing slopes of Yancey, Mitchell, Upper Burke, McDowell, Caldwell counties, eastern Watauga, Ashe counties, and a little bit up in the Yadkin Valley. That's the area we expect to ice. Now, everybody else, tons of rain. So this is a good thing. I know it's kind of miserable cold rain. I'll be honest with you. Nothing worse than cold rain, but in a drought, and it hasn't really rained in 2 months, this will be the most rain we've seen since like the middle of October. So it's been a while, all right? So this is going to be a good soaking rain for all of us. Now, before I leave you, that's tomorrow's system, okay? Be alert for that. We could have a very active storm track this week. So I'm going to move this over a little bit, and we're going to focus on storm number 1, which we just talked about coming in Tuesday, same system. There could be another very similar storm system coming in late this week. And again, looking at the timing of this, it looks to be Friday, Saturday, not that system, right here. So this is going into Saturday morning, really Friday night, Saturday morning. I'll be honest, the models are kind of all over the place on the strength of the system, but it's another low pressure system that could form on the coast and move up this direction. And we should have cold air in place for possibly more wintry weather in the mix. And then even next week, it looks like maybe another system doesn't go out that far on our guidance here, but maybe early next week. So as I mentioned, a pretty active storm track this week where we could have a bunch of these cold rain, brief icing events, but nothing that looks like a winter storm per se, where we're looking at snow and ice for a big chunk of our area. I mean, it's not even all snow for the mountains, which tells you how marginal these events are. At least you'd love to see more snow risk in the mountains. This looks to be primarily ice. And just to give you a heads up for the folks in the mountains tomorrow, this is our winter weather impact graphic. And again, you see the areas in yellow. That's a moderate impact here east of the mountains. And notice it's all the eastern facing slopes that are impacted. I'll widen this out and you show the storm track is really up here in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, into the northeast. That's where it's primarily going to be snow. For us, we're looking at primarily an ice event. And unfortunately, that looks to be the amount of ice we're going to see. So I'll do updates throughout the week. Just know we're in December. Meteorologically, it is winter now, and we're going to start to see the storms everyone have to keep an eye on. But the good news, at least in all of this, we're finally getting rain every 2 to 3 days. This is a typical storm track. It's supposed to do this in the fall, winter, and spring. So hopefully this will get us out of the drought while we wait for maybe deeper cold air and potential for wintry weather down the road. December typically isn't our snow month for the Piedmont. Remember, it's January, February, and even early March.